So it is 4:01, and we are joined once again by Janice. Thank you for joining us, Janice. It is the Four Bites Show, and we are lucky enough to have with us tonight or this afternoon Krista Van Wagner of Curly's, which is what most people are going to say immediately. But they also know Krista from her jerk sauce, which she has put on the map and is put on the shelves in Western New York. We'll talk more about that later. Uh, Decided to go from the kitchen to the classroom, went back to Buffalo State University, got your teacher certificate because you were like, I want to be a teacher. And now you're leading an effort to start a new BOCES-style culinary instructional program in Lackawanna at Global Concepts Charter School. How am I doing so far?
Absolutely awesome. Wow. It's good to be with you.
Yeah, just a little, I'm going to have you tell your story, but I just wanted to throw in one little piece of background. Just put this in context for people who aren't aware. Krista is third generation restaurateur, a bootlegger's granddaughter, and grew up in the place that became Curly's and has gone on to go around the world, come back to Buffalo and teach what she has to the kids here so they can get into the restaurant business. That's the big picture. So, Krista, welcome.
Thank you, Andrew. And how wonderful to be here with you. Congrats with your show, Four Bites. I'm loving it.
I'm loving it too. I thought of Four Bites as an idea where how could I possibly share some of the great conversations I've had over the decade plus with you and various people? How can I share this with more people so that people can get to meet you a little bit? Because there are just some very wonderful, very talented people who are making the world better with food. And so this is why we're here.
Wow.
So please, if you would, give us the nickel tour. You started working in the restaurant. I mean, please take it away.
All right. Well, wow. Where do I begin? Well, first of all, right now, I just want to start out and say I'm so blessed and I'm so happy at this point in my life to have the opportunity to share what I love, and that's food, with hungry students that are like sponges. So where I'm at right now, it's a joy. It's so exciting when I get up in the morning and I'm like, what are we doing today? Oh, focaccia. Can you imagine? I have to make focaccia with my class, talk about yeast, talk about it's alive, get them to get excited, find chemistry in the kitchen, and that really excites them. They're like, oh yeah, that's right. They learned it in bio class about yeast. It's a fungus and it is alive. And then I teach them how to kill it. Right. So I love the science the background that I have. And I'm in a great place. I'm building a culinary school, buying the equipment, and it's professional. It's not like a home ec classroom. That, Andrew, is why I'm so excited. And where I got started, Curly's, 647 Ridge Road, Lackawanna. There was 7 in my family, and we all had to work the business. You know that. But I was short, and I couldn't reach the dish sink until I was in 6th grade. I couldn't reach the bottom of the dish sink, so I couldn't do dishes for my dad until I was in 6th grade. But prior to that, we knew green and brown. We started out in the basement sorting beer bottles, and the basement was short. So that's how we progressed up. And then on the weekends, we got to mop and sweep the restaurant and clean the restaurant. All of us kids had to walk there together, Sunday mornings. We were closed. And I swear to you, Andrew, my father used to hide money in the corners. I always mopped and I always found money. But I swear my father hid that money in the corners or under things. Don't you?
Oh, I don't know your father the way you did. So was he that sort of person who would do something like that?
Yeah, and trust me, he knew when we didn't get in the corners because the money was still there. What a marker.
Hey, look, It's an inexpensive way to incentivize your staff.
Yeah, then that's where we were as
Before you,
children.
before we go on, just one detail question.
Sure.
Okay, seven siblings or
Seven.
eight? Seven
Seven.
siblings.
Yep.
Who had to clean out the grease trap?
Oh my gosh, let's not even talk about the grease trap.
Okay.
That,
Okay, sorry. I didn't mean to
that,
cause PTSD.
that would be me. And trust me, when I moved into this facility, this old church, I said, that grease trap is bubbling, it's gurgling, it's talking to you, please. And they ended up having to get a new one.
So out
So
of the seven siblings, what was your rank in age?
I was the third oldest.
How on earth does the third oldest kid be the one stuck doing the what everyone agrees is the worst job in restaurants?
You understand the grease trap. You've been there, right? Yeah,
I
you
have
can
been
tell.
close enough to smell it,
Yeah.
and then I was able to walk away because I only paid to deal with it.
Oh, trust me, I'm a pro with grease traps, you know. But anyway, first thing I did when we renovated Curly's was put the grease trap outside and in the parking lot. We dug a nice hole, so I never had to do that again. But I learned that from a young age, right, Andrew? So
So,
that was my humble beginnings was, Curly's and cooking fish fries and wrapping
so
them in newspaper.
there you go. And you grew up in Lackawanna. How did you get the itch to go around the world? Not everybody
Well,
from Lackawanna is like, I gotta get out of here.
Well, I wanted to live culinary. I didn't want to learn it out of the cookbooks. And after I graduated from the culinary, I decided young. I mean, I'm lucky. Andrew, I knew when I was 12 years old what I wanted to do. By the time I was 15, I was running a restaurant. But trust me, I started out doing the dishes like everyone does. And I
No,
dreamed,
I'm sorry. It's rude to interrupt, but you're wrong. Not everybody does. But
uh,
people, look, listen. I meet a lot of people who run restaurants, okay? I meet a lot of restaurant owners, and you can tell the ones who wash dishes from the ones who never did. So please go on.
okay, I will. And trust me, I incentivize my dishwashers and took such good care of them at Curly's because without them, I mean, they're the heartbeat of the restaurant and in my story. So it's humbling. It's humbling. And as a restaurant owner, a lot of us do end up in the dish pit. Trust me. On a busy night, someone doesn't show up. We end up there.
And if you ask me, that is an owner, that is a leader, someone who shows you that they will do anything. A different kind of owner would be like, deal with it and go home and have another martini.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we lived right above the restaurant. It was beautiful. The kids on their way home from school at 12 years old had to check the table settings, make sure all the forks and knives weren't spotted, and they did that on their way upstairs to do their homework.
Thank you.
Um,
A sense of,
and
see, you grew up with a sense of duty.
yes, yes, and it brings the kids together. It brought us together as a family. I mean, working together and dealing with each other. So I think it was a great childhood for me. It gave me family. I respected my father. I understood him. I saw what he put up with, and I saw him working because he wasn't home a lot, Andrew. Ski season, he would come home, and we all had to work out together before we would ski. And he took us all skiing, seven of us. The last one he taught, he put his skis down. He goes, I could hurt myself at doing this. I'm done. And he didn't ski anymore because he might break his leg, and he couldn't take care of the family that way. So that's what it was like growing up with my father, Paul Worthling. He worked as hard, and I went off right to the Culinary Institute at age 18. I didn't know what a roux was. I didn't know hollandaise. I didn't know my five mother sauces. But let me tell you, Andrew, I knew how to clean the deep fryer. I knew the standard breading procedure, et cetera, just the basics. So my advice to anyone with culinary school is to get some years under your belt in a real kitchen, because I was always struggling. I was always behind. But I loved it so much, I joined every group I could. The Wine and Beer Society, or the Wine and or the Beer Society. I was the service industry giving tours. I mean, I just loved every bit of the CIA. It was an old Jesuit monastery, and my uncle went there, and that's why back in 1976 we knew of the school. Not many people did. My uncle was a guidance counselor, so he was able to help me, find a school.
So please clarify for me. Your uncle went there when it was a monastery or a cooking
It,
school?
his brother was a Jesuit priest, and he was in the monastery.
Monastery. I
Yeah,
was, since you were talking about two different time phases.
yeah,
So you said that you wanted to go out into the world and learn from the world instead of learning from cookbooks
yeah.
after that. And if you could just pick out a moment or two where you were in a place and you did a thing and you were like, the lightning bolt hit and you were like, this is it. This is it. Uh, Tell us a story.
Well, I mean, when I graduated from the CIA, I looked at my diploma as a plane ticket to anywhere in the world because we eat everywhere. Am I right?
Sure,
I'd go anywhere. So that's
but
what I did.
you gotta pay to go there.
Well, what I did was I sat in travel agencies back in the day and I looked through 5-star resorts and hotels because my resume was only going to be 5-star and I would only work at the 5-star resorts. And that's how I decided where I was going to go, writing letters, doing interviews, sending out 15, 20 different applications to all the places, found the addresses, like I said, at the travel agency. So alone, I did it, and it was very difficult. My first trip was, I like to ski, so I moved out to South Lake Tahoe. Awesome. Started out on the very bottom. I am a woman, and I graduated in 1981. They put all of us women right in the garde manger or the pantry. That was typical of where we started out because of my gender.
Garde Manger is responsible for what part of the menu, please?
It's pantry garde manger, which is a fancy word for the cold station, the pantry, salads, things of that sort. Luckily, in some of the hotels I worked at, we did a lot of banquets and buffets. So that was right up my alley, doing fruit butter sculptures back in the day. We did ice sculptures back in the day. Working at hotels, you get a lot of opportunity. Once again, started out at the bottom, but I always worked myself out of the pantry garde manger. My goal was the hotline.
So to recap, hey, you've got a brand spanking new culinary degree from one of the best culinary institutes in the country. Well, you're a girl, we're going to put you on salads.
In the 80s,
What did
yes,
you have to do to crack the line? Because that's the slinging, that's the action, right? That's the show.
absolutely.
What
It
did
took
you
a
have
lot
to
of
do
work.
to what did you have to do to crack the line?
I came in early. I did the job so well. I stayed afterwards. Um, my work was, superior. I made sure, it was better than most. And then I let them know, I am a CIA graduate. I need to be over there. If a position opens up, we start everyone in pantry. That's what they tell you. So it was a matter of just doing good at the job they gave me and eventually pushing my way out of it.
So, as a woman in the 1980s in commercial hotel kitchens, you met less, some of the worst manifestations of male humanity in various forms. How did you deal with that?
Um, it's wonderful because I am a woman, and I feel that women. And I wanted to take a picture of this and share it with you. I find that um, just the word I used with Janice Oken was manipulative, and that didn't sound very good. And she actually wrote it, but I feel as a woman that we can um, work our way into situations. I was aggressive. Um, and I was used to being put down. And if I was told I was doing something wrong, trust me, I never did it again. So it was a matter of proving myself day in and day out, showing up on time. And the one thing I go on for me is I love it. So I think my energy and my passion and my drive is what opened the doors for me.
I mean, was that enough to keep the jerks off your back, though? I mean,
Never.
did you never have an occasion where you had to turn around with a sharp knife and just happen to have it in your hand?
Let me tell you, when I was the rounds person, and that's how the chef set me up, he gave me every station. I had to learn every single station. They were all men. And this is on a traditional, French style, the saute, garde manger, like I said, poissonniere, entremetière, grillade. I had to do all those stations on their days off. So they would leave me with nothing. They wanted me to look bad. So that's why I came in early, cleaned their station, meased their station, and left them meased for the next day. and they still disliked me, but that chef left. And the day he left and introduced the staff, he said, I do want to say one thing. If you need to know anything, just ask Krista. Krista, she's done all the stations. And they didn't realize it, but they made me who I am. They made me. My chef made me who I am. And that was by being put down constantly and just surviving. I remember crying. I just want to go home, you know, but I did it. And that was the Jeff Gold. And he always told me everything I made was not good enough. You accept that? So I add more salt. Did I really add more salt, Andrew? No, but he nothing was ever good enough. You learn to deal with that, right? Right?
Or you pick some other area in which to make your will known. So what did you do after that?
Well, I got tired of skiing, so I decided on Florida. And then from Florida, I worked at the Boca Raton Beach Club, of course, and I always had to have a side job. I always had to work 2 jobs because we weren't paid enough, Andrew. I couldn't afford my student loan, my car payment, so I always had a side gig. My side gig was at a beautiful restaurant, Cafe Limoges, little French restaurant, husband and wife team. And I tell you, they offered me the world. And I left Boca Beach Club. They said, you can't leave us. And I'm like, oh yeah. And I did. I ran Cafe Limoges for a husband and wife. The husband was getting tired of the kitchen and he gave me free reins. It was just the 2 of us.
Can you spell the last word?
Oh, the restaurant was called Cafe Limoges. Limoges, China, from France.
Would you spell that for me?
Limoug or Ogue, Limoges.
Okay. And so when you say you ran the restaurant, I mean, you were the chef, you were ordering, you were cooking, you were doing the
Yes,
specials, you were like, I'm gonna do what I want to do. So this was basically your first ship,
that's
right?
it. That was my first ship. And from there, one of our customers bought a restaurant in Jamaica. So he asked if I would run it, Americanize the Jamaican cuisine with a French flair. The name of the restaurant or the hotel was Ambiance Jamaica. My background was strong in French. I mean, I was classically trained.
Huh?
Thank you.
Huh. Whether or
And
not
I
you liked
killed
it,
it.
you definitely were.
I killed it. I mean, I had so much fun with that. Once again, going down there being a woman, it was tough. And then I was a white woman in a world where they spoke patois, and they would talk right about you to your face, and you couldn't understand them, you know. But I learned a lot, and I ran the kitchen, Americanized the Jamaican cuisine with a French flair. I served ackee and codfish, Benedict style, added hollandaise to it. I took the bones out of things.
So, okay, let's just back up that 1 second. Aki is breadfruit.
Ackee actually is poisonous. It's a fruit. It's not breadfruit. Breadfruits are
Sorry,
huge.
sorry, wrong
Ackee,
stuff. Please,
ackee is little.
what is Aki?
It's a small little fruit that grows from a tree and it kind of opens up. It has to open up to release the gases. Otherwise, you'll kill somebody. Can you imagine that? It has to open up naturally and
Who
release
grew
the gases.
vegetables?
It's a fruit
Wow,
and it looks like scrambled eggs. That's all.
it is a beloved food vegetable in Jamaica.
Of the islands, yes. And I took the bones out of the jerk chicken. I made stocks and I basically Americanized the Jamaican cuisine with a French flair. And I worked there for 4 months and wrote the menu, trained the staff, and boogied from there. From Grand Cayman, I got my taste of the islands, and that's what drew me back. Married to my husband, I moved back to Florida, and I married my my old boyfriend from the culinary, Kirk Van Wagner. We ended up
Oh,
getting married. And he was
no.
living in Florida. So the first year I went and worked at a French restaurant around the street from the French restaurant he was working at. We always were competing. And they sent me to Switzerland for 4 months on an exchange program. I got the job there knowing the company sent every year two staff to Switzerland to train. I was the first woman that ever went and represented our group once again. Anyway, from there, Switzerland, the following year, my husband got an opportunity to open up a restaurant in Grand Cayman. So he left and he decided sell everything, rent out the house, and come on down here and get a job. So we were down there 2 years. And once again, I started out, I worked at the Grand Pavilion Hotel with all Europeans. I was the only white woman, American, in the kitchen. And I ended up getting promoted to the executive chef within 6 months. And I was working with people
So
from
the executive
France.
chef, for those not familiar, that's the boss. That's the editor in chief of the kitchen. That's you make all the and
Yeah.
you don't get your hands dirty during service usually.
No, and in Grand Cayman, you receive gratuity for everything they do. I was, even as the chef, was receiving gratuity for every time someone slept in the hotel room.
Exec was getting a piece of the gross.
Yes, we got a percentage. It was all in the islands. My husband worked at the Bella Capri, an Italian restaurant. You get a very small pay scale, but everyone works by points. The executive chef gets the most points. At the end of the evening, 15% gratuity is added on to every check. 15%. Anything above that, the servers get to keep. And you know, in a fine dining restaurant like that, they did make a lot more than 15%. These points, they divided that total amount of gratuity and distributed it every day to the chef, the dishwasher, the servers. It was completely distributed throughout the whole staff. Even the owner who was working, he got a cut of it too, which people didn't like. But he was right there working right along. So that is one way that gratuity can be split here in the United States someday. It works.
Wow. I mean, if everybody shares a little bit of the gravy on the nights when the machine is working and everybody is pumping and doing their best, there you go. That's incentivized. Right now, under the classic American Canadian system, and nowhere else in the world, the cooks don't get more unless somebody has mercy on them. They get their straight hourly pay and maybe overtime, but 100 dishes, 10 dishes, it's all the same to them. And pay wise, that doesn't make any sense to me. But anyways, enough about that. So
that was Greg Cayman. So we worked every day. There's no labor laws, Andrew. You work every day, 6, 7 days a week. It's like being on a cruise ship in the middle of an island, in the middle of the ocean. There's no labor laws. So you work.
I mean, wouldn't burnout be a problem? Why did you leave after 2 years?
Well, because we saved enough money, because we didn't have time to spend it. We drove little scooters around the island. We lived in a studio apartment. We made money off of the rent they paid for us, you know, us two together. So we grew our own basil and bought cases of wine and put it in our closet because everything was expensive. And if you visited me in Grand Cayman, promise me you're going to bring me some things, some toiletries, birth control for my husband, things like that. People would walk in the dining room. I'm from Buffalo. This is for the chef. It's expensive.
Yeah, you know it's really expensive? Kids. So you need all the birth control you can get.
Anyway, so that was our 2 years in Grand Cayman.
One tiny little detail trivia question, and we'll move on. When you were in the Grand Caymans, you asked people to bring you stuff.
Yeah.
Name like the junk food that you asked for, the thing that you were paid to ask for, but they brought you anyways because you knew there was no other way to get it.
No. You know what? That's one thing I never asked for. It was just the toiletries. The toiletries that cost so much. No junk food. You know, to watch my soap operas, I had to go to the gas station and rent a VCR, and it had 3 days of the soap operas on it. Like we didn't have TV. Yes, that's what it's like living in the islands. It was so much fun. I learned so much. Jamaica was poor. Grand Cayman, there wasn't much poverty. It was a very wealthy British island, you know.
So you made your pile there, and what'd you do with it?
Well, we had I lived in Switzerland, so I had a Swiss bank account, right? So I left that. In Switzerland, you never see a paycheck. Money, everyone in the country of Switzerland has to have a bank account, and the money goes right in the bank account. So I had a Swiss bank account, and I surely kept a Cayman account. People thought I was laundering money. Anyway, we saved every penny.
We'll talk about that later.
We saved every penny, came back home and took over Curly's because the steel plant had closed, and every restaurant, every bar, it was devastated. There was one on every corner, every street were all closing down. So my father couldn't survive. Um, we were young, in our 30s, and we decided to come back home and open up our own place because no one was going to take care of us in this industry. Nobody. And we had the work ethic, ethic. And the both of us came home. We took the money we made. We were lucky, we paid off all our debt, all our school loans, because we worked so hard. We were so focused. We were so driven. And we came back home, put all our money in the kitchen. My father had that place held together by duct tape. I swear to you, it was a lot of work fixing it up, but we cleaned it up, scrubbed it up, got rid of the dart boards, pool tables, and put dining room chairs in the back and cook good food. Why buy bread? We make our own bread, all stock. Now this is in the 1989 we came back. So there we are making our own bread. Seafood is my thing. We were flying our seafood in. We had a lot of good connections. So we did very well. We came back, put our money in the back of the house instead of all the fancy stuff. Curly's was pretty plain and cooked great food.
This is apparently a real foundation moment for other chef owners I've talked to. Did you get to buy new ranges?
No, I forget the name of the place where we would go. It was Lou, and he had a restaurant supply place, and we would go to Lou, and if anything came in, he'd tell us, but no, we couldn't afford it. Kirk was making homemade bread, and he had, just the mixing machine that sits on the stand. He broke the shaft from pushing it from right inside. So his anniversary gift was a mixing machine as big as me.
Oh,
I got a ground one. That's the kind of things you do.
You're a real romantic.
I know, but I tell you, was able to
do what
push
you got
out.
to do. You're running a business.
Yeah, that's
So,
kind of how it works.
well, if one of the things you've done here already today for me is explained. So when you first popped up on my radar, like one of the first questions I had was, once I finally understood what was going on, how the hell did Scotch bonnet peppers get to Lackawanna? And
I
now I
love
know,
that.
well,
Yes,
Lackawanna,
yes.
I mean, Scotch bonnet peppers and used well. Scotch bonnet peppers can be very, very, very painful in the wrong dose, but if you know how to titrate the fire and apply it in various appropriate ways, it is delightful. It is definitely the tastiest, most thing that I kept eating enough to be painful in a long time. I mean, it's got right on that balance.
Something about that Scotch bonnet pepper. I can tell a habanero and a Scotch bonnet. That Scotch bonnet pepper has got a better flavor. I mean, of course, it has the fire. And I lived in a town called Hell, Grand Cayman. So I was like, oh my gosh. And I had known about the Scotch bonnet peppers from my time in Jamaica. So they asked me to work in Grand Cayman. My permits were not through. In Jamaica, I worked, but I had to hide. And I said to them in Grand Cayman, my permits are not through. I'm not working. Okay. Because it's just not a good idea. It's not safe for you or them. So I took the time off until they were ready, sat under the palm tree in the hammock for one day. And then I said, I'm making a hot sauce. I'm from Buffalo. I can get all the Scotch bonnet peppers I want. And I started bottling, producing health sauce. And then the health department came in to check Kirk's kitchen, and he's like, oh my goodness, I got to go down. Someone's making a hot sauce and selling it at the post office. Where are they making it? I've got to go find out, Kirk told me. And then another thing I didn't know is in Grand Cayman, you're only allowed 40% of your company. So there I am. I got hot sauce going at all the restaurants because of all our friends, passing out my health sauce and selling it at the post office. I almost got kicked off the island. In Grand Cayman, you're only allowed 40% of your business. And I had to run out and find two Caymanians.
Multiple international bank accounts, flouting local laws. Okay, I see where we're going with this.
Kirk says you're the only one I know that can be on an island and be kicked off within, 2 weeks. I was only there 2 weeks and I was already bottling and And I saved the Perrier bottles from his restaurant, and I covered them in grout, gray grout, and sprayed them in the wind with black spray paint. And I put a cork on the top with red wax dripping down. The name of my sauce was Halicious, Halicious. And the partner I brought in was a British woman with Canadian status, and she said it's not a word, and we have to change the name. I was like, okay. So then it was hell sauce, and it was fun. And I drew a little devil, and I gave him the saboteur and the whip in the other hand, put a chef's hat on him. But anyway, that's my humble beginnings with hell sauce.
I demand that you bring that back for some old school hell sauce flavor. I mean, what you're doing now is one thing, but come on, you could sell like a Roots original catalog. I mean, like, Dylan's Complete Hits or something. No, so let's keep talking about the sauce. So you got back here. The sauce was you're making sauce at Curly's. It was successful. How did you get into selling it here?
Taste of Buffalo. The Taste of Buffalo did so much for Curly's. I mean, the day after the Taste of Buffalo, we had lines out the door. How do you recoup? Restaurants closed down for 3 days. We didn't have enough staff. Taste of Buffalo, there were lines out our door. We were serving jerk chicken, playing reggae music. We were so popular. I didn't worry about, I've got a lot of children in my family. I had 76 volunteers working shifts with all caps and t-shirts at the Taste of Buffalo. And everyone was dancing. Everyone was dancing. We got the grills, we had the smoke going, and the third year at the Taste of Buffalo, we sold 1 ton of chicken. 1 ton. Do you know what 1 ton looks like? And someone stole our truck that year. Someone stole our truck with all our mise en place in it, all our jerk chicken for 3 days or 2 days, right?
It was already marinated and it was all loaded in, and they stole the truck.
They stole the truck that was running because it was a refrigerated truck. It had Clark's Poultry and Seafood written on the side. And I went to every radio station. They had 3 down there. And my friend worked for the NFTA. Everybody was on the radio talking about it. Now, years ago, so what, this is 91, that truck would have had to been taken away because it was out of my hands. We still were able, they left it at a parking lot running and stole the beer. But they left it running with the food in. But years ago, I mean, I still serve that food. That was a scary day.
People were in refrigeration the whole time, so.
Well, think about it. It was not in my hands. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it went for a little ride. I mean,
it sure did. So anyway, that was a stressor, I'd say.
No, this is great. And the interesting part is you come off as such a nice person, but all your stories involve crimes. I like this.
Oh, geez, listen to me. You're right.
I mean,
Grandpa was a bootlegger. Grandpa was a bootlegger.
Right, what are you going to do? It's what's this in your blood? There's a certain flexibility in your actions. I'm just kidding.
I know you are. How fun! But Taste of Buffalo made my business.
So when did you start selling like jerk on the shelf from the bottle?
Tops. Right away after Taste of Buffalo, we won People's Choice with it. I just called them up and 1992, they took me on, and they just took me off their shelves last year.
I wasn't selling. Still available at Clark's Poultry and Seafood, Gershio's, Premier Gourmet, The Deli, Elm Street Bakery, and also through your website, jerksauce.com, which curiously is not a porn site. It's actually a hot sauce site.
Yeah, I got in trouble for that. My aunt said to me when I moved back to Buffalo, "You can't sell jerk chicken. That's bad." I said, "Why? Where's your mind at?" That's what they said. No one heard of jerk, just like those Scotch bonnets back then.
You said you're the one in the gutter with your little filthy self. I'm eating some good chicken over here.
That's exactly how it went down. That's funny. So yeah, jerk chicken, it was different. And I was blessed that I traveled abroad, and
we were blessed that you came back.
Oh, thank you. It was a great ride.
I mean, anyways, so, enough blah, blah, blah about that. But at a certain point, you decided to get into education. Now, you probably have been teaching right along, hadn't you?
I'll tell you right now, that's how it goes, you know, in the kitchen. All of us, we are instructors. You know, how do you teach someone to mise? You know, I've been doing it all my life. I love teaching, and I've always done cooking classes, and I started those when I was at Park Plaza down in Florida, and the people told me cooking classes will never be popular until you can have a TV right by your um in your kitchen. Like we didn't have TVs back then. They told me I was crazy. I wanted to do a
Hmm.
cooking. That was my dream back then, you know, was to do a cooking show, and they laughed at me.
When did you start teaching?
I started teaching and doing my
Outside
own.
the kitchen, not underlings, but civilians.
Um, each restaurant I worked at, remember, I always needed a side gig. I found someone to let me go in and do cooking classes. So I've been teaching on the side. I loved it, you know. But boy, to go into the classroom professionally, that took some lessons. I learned so much. I'm so glad I went back to school. Buff State's teaching program is great. 3 years it took me. I was teaching at ECC as an adjunct and Niagara Falls Culinary as an adjunct, and then going to Buff State full time at night. So wow, you know, to learn how to teach, it was great.
What didn't you know already?
Ooh. Well, you know, I have to make it rigorous and relevant, and there's all those assessments. Um, in culinary, they assess themselves every day. It turns out, and it doesn't, right? Right. So I just had to learn to document it. That's all, you know, reviews and things like that. But that was the best thing I ever did. We sold Curly's in 2014. Um, Unfortunately, I will be truthful. Kirk and I decided to we got a divorce, and Kirk was my rock. I'm telling you, he was a rock, and I felt so unstable. So I feel that selling the restaurant, you know, was what we needed to do. So we ended up selling it, and that's, you know, I was teaching already. I jumped right into teaching, went back to school, um, you know, and here I am today, global charter. Wow.
You are today is getting ready to, or how long have you already been working on starting a cooking school?
Well, I started with Buffalo Public in the home ec, teaching sixth and seventh, no, seventh and eighth graders. So I did that for a year and a half.
That was when? What year?
Um, I started teaching at Buffalo Public right after I graduated in 2019. And Buffalo Public from there. So I've been here now over 2 years. The culinary school is professional. They put a lot of money into the building. And I was always volunteering, which I talked to you about. I was a member of the Chamber of Commerce and the CEO of Global Charter. When he got the grant and the money to build this school, he called me up and asked if I was interested. You know, so I mean, so it's my past life. Luckily, I worked with him and volunteered with him. So I guess I was in the right place at the right time, right?
Tell us about the scope of it. Like, how big is it supposed to be? 1 year, 2 year, that sort of thing.
Um, the I have a feeder for the program. Freshmen and sophomore are allowed to do the food and nutrition and intro to baking. Those are half-year courses. Those are my feeder courses. Culinary starts junior and senior year. So first year is junior, and then second year. Our program, we are certifying it, and that's been a lot of work. We're going to do NOCTI. So I'll be teaching to the test, just like everybody else in the school, you know, all those Regents test. So I
Okay.
like the fact that it's going to be certified. They'll walk out the door, you know, with certification, serve safe certification. Uh,
And the term is NOCTI, not
yes.
not to be confused with another term that denotes anti-Semitism.
Thank
Just
you.
in case anybody's wondering out there. Um, when you do that, though, how many students, I mean, per year can you graduate? Like, how big is it? How many seats?
Not many, not big. I have room for 15 students.
Mhm.
every year. 15, that's it. And it's a 2-year program.
It's got to start someplace.
Yeah,
And if it works, and if it's a replicatable model, who knows, right?
exactly. And everyone has stations. You know, I set it up pretty much. Nick was ahead of me and he set our kitchen up. Nick was a chef that I stepped in and replaced. He set the kitchen up a lot like Buff States. So you know, I've got the individual steak stations. They all have their own refrigerators. Um, I also changed things a little bit to mirror the kitchens I worked at Niagara Falls Culinary.
Oh,
So yeah, I took pictures. I know all the equipment I have to buy, and we even put in something like a combi unit. You know, that's a $30,000 piece of equipment, but it's what the students are going to see in the real world. So that kitchen is a
combi oven.
professional.
So a combi oven is one of those things that can not only do the varying heat things and air ranges, but can also inject steam.
Mhm. Steam, smoke, dehydrate.
Oh,
The only thing it isn't is a blast chiller. That's the only piece of equipment I didn't get. At Niagara Falls, I had the blast chiller, so you can make mousses and pies and cakes. That blast chiller is another important component. So you can get things done, move things along. Um,
oh,
but I really think that that combi unit is a good piece of equipment.
you know, as much as I'm glad that you're running a culinary program and successful and happy in your life, I'm also quite happy that Krista Van Wagner finally got a combi to play with. That is
Thank
some,
you.
that's like the Lamborghini of kitchen equipment.
I knew you'd respect that. Anyone would. That's in the culinary
Wow.
world, and I got it by saying it's what we need to teach our students to work with. It's the future. I mean, just the way it works. You know, putting a recipe in, programming it. It's consistency. You don't even really have to think. You can program that whole thing, and the companies you buy it for take your recipe and program it for you. So
And the prep cook is never going to forget something that burns in the oven again because
oh yeah.
he'd probably ring his cell phone and say, "Get your ass over here."
Anyway, so I really thought about what is needed and what the students need to know going out in our industry, and that program will only grow. It's flagship. I'm the culinary program. That's the first. They want to do a biomedical. They have the theater, the digital multi, the media. They want to do. They have their newspaper. We don't have any television programs yet, but they're hoping to grow that too. But that'll be in It's Like a BOCES. I keep asking for cosmetology too, and they're not even talking about that yet. They're not thinking on that line. That's what I'm like, wow, biomedical, digital media. That's more important to them than things like that.
Wow.
It's
I
just,
mean, when are the first graduates going to issue from this program? When is the inaugural class going to graduate?
in 24, 25, we'll be running the program and doing the program. And luckily, we've been practicing for years towards our certification. We will not be certified till the following year. It takes a year long to do that. Also, a nice thing too, Andrew, the articulations with the colleges. We have an articulation agreement with ECC where they won't have to take the pantry garde class. They'll get 3 credits, which that's a nice thing that we're doing. And they have them with Villa Maria for the theater, and then Buff State. They're working on that as well. So we're also doing the college articulations, and those colleges are hungry to work with you on that. I didn't realize that. Anything to draw students into their school, right?
What's your perception of the current job market in the Western New York restaurant world?
Wow, we need culinaries. We need students they need them in the culinary schools. The restaurateurs are dying. We're bleeding for anybody that wants to work and to grow in the culinary world. You got to tickle them when they're young. You got to get them excited about it when they're young, and tell them that there is opportunity to make money down the road. It's a lot of work and it takes years to get to that salary. And you know that. And, they have to understand, I had to work 2 jobs to survive. I think the pay scale's picked up a little bit since my day. I hope, but it's still, a little above minimum wage,
Nope.
right?
For a lot above minimum work. It's a
Oh
lot
my,
easier to stand behind a cash register someplace and not answer the phone. So we have a question. Janice Slough asks, I'll read it off to you.
sure.
Uh, do you recommend the culinary degree at 20 to 60 tuition per year?
Do I recommend the culinary
Yes.
degree? I recommend the culinary degree in a smart, efficient way. And I feel ECC's program, that 2 year will get you going. You want to go on further, then go to the Culinary Institute of America.
How
Then
much
go to
ballpark for me? ECC culinary, it's an associate's, that's 2 years. How much is that? Roughly.
that's 3,100 a term. Well, no, wait,
A
it's
term
six
is a
thousand
semester?
total. It's
Six.
it's 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 6,000 total.
Okay, so for $6,000, you can go in and get some education instead of paying a whole tens of thousands of dollars to go to one of the really fancy places where they want you to write essays about wine.
Yes, yes, and don't do what I did. I mean, I went in, I didn't even know what a hollandaise was. That's why I love programs like Niagara Falls Culinary. They have the 2 year. Then go into one of those bigger schools if you want and specialize in something. I mean, they have the pastry. If you just decided you just wanted to go into pastries, then go on to that. But I would highly recommend our schools here locally for the first 2 years to get a taste of it. Even the certification programs they offer. You can go in and get Serve Safe certification. They have a 1 year certification program. Just to walk in, you'll get more money on the job if you have some sort of certification and then work yourself up. There's a lot of people that are hungry for people. Look at the staff that end up buying the restaurant they work for. That happens sometimes, right, Andrew?
That reminds me, certification. Can I just return to a prior subject for a moment? You mentioned that at the program that you're starting up now, it's
Yeah.
going to be another year before you can get certification. What is this certification that it's important to you to get it at this program? Like, why do you care if you're certified?
Well, if I would have chose American Chef Federation, ACF certification, you would have understood that maybe, right? It would be a program that is relevant and rigorous and follows the criteria that they set. So it's like taking a Regents test. But to have that NACD certification pushes me to make sure it's a reliable, well-rounded, well-done program. I'm teaching to the test, you know, just like they are in math and science.
So
I like,
you're not just some stranger from the internet with a course to sell people. You're people who have been checked out.
yes, and I like that. I like that. That's important to me that I'm building a program like that.
Well, listen, I have a couple of questions that are like standard questions that I ask people
Sure.
just to, mess with them a little bit.
Uh-oh.
And they're designed more or less so that hopefully the answers are revealing, but also some of these times these things go over like a Led Zeppelin. So I'll just shoot them and see what happens out. You probably have been asked this often enough that you have an answer to it. So let's just have it. Uh, Last meal on this planet. Let's not call it a death row meal. Let's say you get one more meal on Earth, one in one place, and then you got to go. So, what do you got for us?
My last meal, are you going to let me fish for it? I
You,
want to go fishing. I want to go fishing and catch my own fish. And I want some sort of seafood right out of the sea that I fillet.
would you do with that fish once you caught it?
The KISS theory. Keep it simple, stupid. Maybe a simple grenobloise or Breton, mushroom capers. Very simple. Let that halibut
You
speak to
just
me.
said a very simple grenobloise. I know what a grenobloise is. What's a grenobloise?
Well, it's just capers and lemon and white wine and a little butter.
It sounds delicious. And it sounds a lot better than Grenoblaus, if you ask me.
Well, how about Breton? Does that sound punchier? Breton, mushroom capers, classic dish. Even almondine, just something simple. That's
Simple.
seafood. That's seafood right there. You
Do you
got
have
your
a
fresh
preference
lemon.
for do you have a preference for which kind of hook, which kind of fish would jump out of the water onto your hook specifically, or are they all
Oh
good?
yeah, I would love to get a marlin. Wouldn't that be beautiful? But I think I'd like to go to Alaska and get some halibut.
Oh, halibut.
Just for the
Right.
halibut. I want to go to Alaska.
All right. Good answer. Next question. Slightly different scenario. You grew up in Buffalo, love Buffalo. For some reason that's not important, you had to be away for a decade. You get back into the airport and you're hungry. Where do you go first? And what do you get?
Oh my gosh. Is it the beef on whack or is it the chicken wing? I don't
What?
know. I don't know. Or the fish fry. You know what? I want it and then I get it and I never can finish it. It's more wanting it, the smell of it, looking at it, the memories, that's more enjoyable than actually, to me, eating it.
Maybe it's more enjoyable than, finishing all of it.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, a fish fry, 3 salads, French fries, enough tartar sauce to make it happen. You're asking for a nap. You are. You
Yes,
need
you
a
are.
nap.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know, as a young man, a double order was my standard order of chicken wings. Now I've gone down to ordering a single order and having two.
Wow. See, you're like me now.
No, I'm not like you. I'm roly poly. You're slim as a rail. How do you do it?
Well, I don't eat a lot. I graze all day long, and that's a healthy way of eating. Is always, I was looking for my blackberries. I have got a little thing of blackberries, or something always to pick on. Anyway,
Uh, question number. So, okay, let's just note for the record that question number 2 was avoided, but we won't pin you down to a single place. Um, Number 3, what's a place that is selling food right now that you wish more people knew about?
I would say Jerry and Brian, Bratz Hill.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a student of mine. We worked together for 6 years. He helped me do caterings. I sent you that one video of him on Come Dine with Me, Western New York. That was his first time on TV, and look at how he soared. But that's some real good Jamaican cuisine, classic, but he does it with such flair, enjoyable.
And one more. You're at Paula's. You can only pick one donut. Which one do you get?
Oh, you know what? I'm always gonna do the peanut stick.
Oh,
Always,
oh,
always.
palpable hit. Palpable hit. I have argued with people so hard about this peanut stick every time. It's that little bit of nutmeg in the cake, and the
That's
fact that if you need one donut that'll last you all day, that's it, and can also be
yes.
used as improvised shelter in a storm. So there's that.
But I do love that you noticed that little bit of nutmeg or something in there in that crust.
It's
I
just
love it.
it's
Yeah,
great. Uh, so let's see. Okay, well that's it for the stump the guest questions. We have another question coming in from somebody.
sure.
Scotty Harris would like to know if you still show up at culinary events with a cooler of Jello shots.
Oh my gosh. Give me the event that I can meet you at, Scotty. We need Jello shots, all of us.
So that is that a yes?
Oh,
Can we call that a yes?
wow. Unfortunately, Scotty, I'm working with students these days, and the Jello shots don't cut it anymore. So,
Oh, what does cut it these days?
um, I need to get myself out and volunteer to do one of those fundraisers so I can get together with the chefs. We always did Jello shots. We worked hard. We volunteered. I mean, Scotty, how many um, volunteer events did we do together? Mike Energeski, they were known for it too.
You are muted.
I am.
No one heard anything you said, Scotty, and that was a relief. But let's get on the horn.
How about now?
There you
Ah,
go.
nice. Hey,
Okay.
Scotty.
I'm not on my usual.
How many events did you do together?
Yeah,
Was the question.
probably about a dozen. The earliest one I remember was a Taste of the Nation. In fact,
Oh,
I still have my lapel pin.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe you, Scotty.
You
I
you
love
you,
that.
you also gave me a first generation numbered bottle of your hot sauce that I have not opened yet.
Wow, it does get better with age, huh?
Yeah, it's aging. It's aging. But
Whoa, let me know.
that used to be a way of building camaraderie, and I often say the Buffalo culinary community is small but incestuous. So we all got to know each other, and we're all there to help each other out when somebody's ANSO, the fire suppression system,
Yes.
goes up. We show up and mop.
I mean,
Yeah.
for the record, can we use a different word than incestuous? Because that has an actual meaning, and I don't like you in that way.
Well, you are my first online date, dear.
Oh
Ah,
well, we'll always
oh,
have
Scotty,
99.
we
Wow.
did.
See, Krista, it is so much fun talking to you that the hour is up. We
No
are
way.
so it's 4:57, and Krista, the floor is yours.
Well, I want to thank Scotty for jumping in, number one. Number two, I want to thank you for what you're doing and
Oh,
continued success with it because people love it. We want to know, we want to know those little things that put us where we are, from these people with these great stories. Every chef has a story.
it's going to be hard to follow you, but that's what I'll keep doing. I will keep finding people who are up to great things. We'll have you back with a student of yours when you have a student to show us. If you want, we'll follow up. We'll be back. And just and right back at you. Thank you for being an inspiration. I try to remind people that because I'm always getting thanked by people who I'm writing about that. Like,
Yep.
if it wasn't for you dreaming, putting your neck on the line, putting the extra effort in, having the vision, having the hope despite everything, I wouldn't have anything to write about, would I?
That's very interesting. You are right about that. Absolutely. You keep writing and we'll keep doing.
All
I
right.
promise you. I promise you.
It is a deal. Thank you very much, Krista, and thank you all of those who could join us and ask questions on the 4-Bite Show. Next week, remember, we'll continue our motto. We'll be better next week.